The German Shepherd planted himself like a wall between a mother and her boarding gate. No amount of yelling would make him budge. When they finally searched her diaper bag, what they found next to her toddler's juice box made everyone freeze. Here's what happened. Now, before we get into today's story, drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. And if you love extraordinary police dog stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. 7:12 a.m. At Skyport International, and the morning rush was already hitting like a freight train. You know that smell? It's this weird cocktail of burnt coffee that's been sitting in machines since 4 a.m., way too much Axe body spray, and that sweet baby powder scent that clings to families who've been up since God knows when trying to catch a 6 a.m. departure. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that harsh, unflattering glow that makes everyone look like they need 6 more hours of sleep. Terminal C buzzed with the symphony of modern travel. Suitcase wheels click-clacking across polished tiles in an endless rhythm. Kids whining about being awake too early, couples arguing over forgotten phone chargers, and that robotic female voice droning about delayed flights every 12 minutes like some kind of airport purgatory soundtrack. "Attention passengers on flight 287 to Denver," the voice announced for the 3rd time. "We're experiencing a slight delay due to mechanical issues. Updated departure time will be posted shortly." Officer Callie Navarro stood at her usual post between Gate 22 and the security scanner, steaming cup of cafeteria coffee in one hand, radio clipped to her shoulder. 8 years on the force, 3 with the K9 unit, and she could read this airport like her favorite mystery novel. Every regular traveler, every suspicious behavior pattern, every gate agent who'd sneak her an extra sugar packet for Duke. And Duke? He was something else entirely. This wasn't just any German Shepherd. He had those intense amber eyes that seemed to see straight through people's souls and moved like he was perpetually on a high-stakes military mission, even when he was just standing there, watching people fumble with their boarding passes and oversized carry-ons. "All right, Duke," Callie muttered, finishing her coffee and tossing the cup in a nearby bin. She adjusted the tactical leash clipped to her utility belt. The leather was worn smooth from 3 years of constant partnership, the metal rings dulled from daily use. "Let's see if today's as boring as yesterday, when that guy tried to smuggle protein powder and you made him cry." Duke gave a soft chuff, his version of "not a chance, boss." His ears swiveled like radar dishes, picking up sounds Callie's human ears couldn't even register. A dropped coin 3 gates away, a kid crying in the family bathroom, the subtle wheeze of Mrs. Peterson's oxygen tank as she waited for her flight to Phoenix. They moved through the terminal like a well-oiled machine, Callie's boots clicking in steady rhythm while Duke's paws made almost no sound on the polished floor. They weaved between clusters of nervous travelers and those ridiculous rope stanchions everyone hates but somehow never suggests getting rid of. A businessman dropped his newspaper, and Duke automatically stepped around it. A little girl in pigtails waved at him, and he gave the briefest tail wag, still on duty, but acknowledging the gesture. Truth is, the K9 unit was mostly for show in the domestic terminals. Most serious smugglers, the ones moving real weight or dangerous contraband, tried their luck at customs or in cargo where the big money moved through. But Duke, he had this almost supernatural record of random alerts that had surprised even the 20-year veterans who thought they'd seen everything. Like that time last month when he flagged a woman's organic yoga mat. Seemed innocent enough until they found enough stolen credit cards sewn into the lining to supply a small identity theft ring. Or the week before that, when he'd alerted on a teenager's gaming console. Kid was moving heroin in custom-made battery compartments. Callie remembered the day Duke came into her life like it was yesterday. Fresh out of the German Shepherd breeding program in Bavaria, he'd been specifically selected for his intense focus and that almost supernatural nose. The trainer had warned her during their first meeting. "This one's different, Callie. He sees patterns others miss. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it'll drive you absolutely crazy with cases that don't add up until he proves they do. That Tuesday morning had started routine enough. The 5 a.m. alarm that never got easier. Duke's morning walk around her apartment complex where he'd politely acknowledged the ancient Pomeranian from 3B. The drive in while listening to the local traffic report promising delays on the 405. The pre-shift coffee that tasted like disappointment but carried enough caffeine to power a small city. Coffee tastes like battery acid? Check. Duke perfectly groomed and ready to work? His vest positioned just right? Check. Same gate agents giving her the morning wave. Jennifer at A7, Mike at the international terminal, Sarah, who always slipped Duke a treat when she thought Callie wasn't looking. Check. Until it didn't. Near the boarding area for flight 142 to Chicago, Duke suddenly slammed on the brakes. Not his, something's interesting pause where his ears perk up, but his body stays loose and curious. Not his suspicious package alert where he'd circle and investigate methodically. This was the full-on, something is very wrong freeze. Every muscle in his 95 pounds tensed, weight shifted forward on his front paws, every fiber of his being locked onto a single target. His ears shot up like twin satellite dishes suddenly receiving an emergency broadcast. Head tilted at that precise 45-degree angle that meant he was processing something beyond standard human comprehension. His nose worked rapidly, pulling in data from the air currents that swirled through the gate area, analyzing and cataloging scents with a precision that would make any laboratory equipment jealous. Then came that growl, low, deliberate, rumbling from somewhere deep in his chest cavity, and aimed with laser precision at a woman nobody had been paying attention to. At first glance, she looked exactly like every other exhausted mom, dragging herself through the airport at the crack of dawn. Early 30s, designer sunglasses that probably cost more than Callie's monthly car payment, definitely hiding either a hangover or the kind of sleep deprivation that only comes with young kids. Her hair was a deliberately messy bun that somehow still looked Instagram-worthy, secured with what looked like one of those expensive scrunchy things that came back into style for some reason. She moved like someone juggling too many responsibilities at once. One toddler balanced expertly on her hip while the kid sucked on a juice box, a massive designer diaper bag slung over her opposite shoulder that seemed to defy physics with its contents, and a high-end stroller loaded with enough gear to outfit a small expedition to Mount Everest. The stroller had cup holders, phone mounts, snack trays, and what looked like a miniature entertainment system for the kid. Normal, relatable. The kind of domestic scene that played out thousands of times daily in every airport across America. Mothers multitasking their way through travel with kids, looking put together on the surface while probably holding it together with caffeine, determination, and prayer. Except Duke had gone full statue mode. He planted himself right in her path. All 95 pounds of precisely trained muscle creating an unmovable obstacle. His hackles weren't raised. This wasn't aggression. His teeth weren't bared. This wasn't a threat display. This was something else entirely. Pure certainty. The kind of absolute conviction that came from years of intensive training, combined with instincts honed to a razor's edge. "Ma'am," Callie approached, trying to keep her voice casual even as that familiar tingle of pre-action adrenaline started creeping up her spine like ice water. Duke's body language was screaming alert, and in 3 years she'd learned to trust his judgment above her own. "Could you step aside for just a moment? My partner seems to have detected something." The transformation was instant and dramatic, like someone had flipped a switch from tired but composed mom to cornered animal ready to fight. The woman's entire body went rigid, her movements changing from fluid multitasking to jerky, controlled tension. Her free hand tightened on the stroller handle until her perfectly manicured nails dug into the grip, knuckles going bone white. "Are you kidding me?" Her voice cut through the ambient airport noise like a blade, sharp enough to turn heads 3 gates over and cause a pause in several ongoing conversations. The kid stopped mid-sip of his juice box to look up at his mom's suddenly changing tone. I'm already running 20 minutes late because the goddamn parking shuttle was an hour behind schedule. And now you want to hassle me? Move your mutt. Duke is a trained narcotics detection officer, Callie explained, maintaining that carefully neutral tone they'd drilled into her head at the police academy, firm but not aggressive, professional but approachable. He's showing strong indication of interest in your bag. Standard protocol requires me to conduct a secondary screening when we get an alert like this. It's a diaper bag, the woman snapped, her voice climbing in volume with each syllable, until even passengers who were actively trying to ignore the situation started looking up from their phones and magazines. A diaper bag? You seriously think I've got cocaine hidden between wet wipes and goldfish crackers? I'm not making any assumptions, ma'am, but Duke's behavior suggests there's something in your luggage that warrants a closer look. By now, the scene was drawing significant attention. A gate agent picked up her landline, probably calling for security backup, which meant Callie had about 3 to 5 minutes before this turned into a full-scale incident with supervisors, witnesses, and possibly news cameras. The woman's toddler had started squirming in her arms, those tiny sensors that kids have for adult tension kicking into overdrive. This is harassment. Her voice now carried across the entire gate area, bouncing off the polished floors and glass walls in angry echoes. You people take one look at a stressed single mother trying to travel with a child, and you automatically sick your damned German Shepherd on me like I'm some kind of criminal because you need to make your daily quota of arrests. Duke remained perfectly still, utterly unmoved by the verbal tirade. Those intelligent amber eyes stayed laser-focused on that designer diaper bag like it contained classified government secrets. His nose twitched once, twice. Processing, cataloging, confirming whatever complex chemical signature had initially triggered his alert system. Callie had learned to trust this reaction implicitly over their 3 years together. She'd seen Duke work hundreds of searches, and his behavior patterns were as reliable as any scientific instrument. When he got this focused, this absolutely determined, something was always there. His false positive rate was essentially zero among canine handlers in the region. Ma'am, Callie's voice dropped a octave, taking on that particular edge that every veteran cop develops. The one that signals business time is over and compliance is no longer optional. If you continue to resist this standard security procedure, I'll have to escalate the situation to a formal detention. I need you to step to the side with your luggage immediately. The woman stared back at her, upper lip twitching with barely contained fury. Callie could practically see the calculations running behind those oversized designer sunglasses. Fight, flight, or find another angle. Other passengers had started recording with their phones now. Great. Tomorrow's viral video in the making. 2 security officers approached from different angles, having been summoned by the gate agent. By the morning rush standards, this was turning into a significant event. But Duke still wasn't moving. And despite all the noise, all the protests, all the claims of harassment, this wasn't profiling. This was a legitimate alert on a legitimate suspect. I need to see some identification, please, Callie repeated, her hand moving instinctively closer to her radio holster. The woman's ID said, Rachel Dunn, issued in Oregon, expired 3 months ago. A detail Callie mentally filed away for the report she'd be writing later. The address listed was in Portland, but something about the lamination looked off. Not obviously fake, but not quite right either. Her toddler, identified as Max, according to the custom monogramming on the diaper bag, had escalated from fussing to full crying mode, that exhausted, ragged sound that cuts straight through your skull and makes everyone in a 100-foot radius unconsciously check their watches and hope it stops soon. I've got a screaming kid who hasn't napped properly in 3 days, a non-refundable flight that's already been delayed twice and cost me $800, Rachel continued her tirade, shifting Max higher on her hip. The child's wails were approaching that special frequency that seems designed by evolution specifically to short-circuit adult brain function. And now I'm dealing with some power tripping handler with an attitude problem and a poorly trained dog who obviously doesn't know the difference between a diaper bag and a drug stash. This is absolutely beyond ridiculous. Callie ignored the personal attack, her eyes catching Officer Daniels approaching from the main checkpoint. Good. Backup would help contain this situation before it spiraled into something requiring incident reports that would eat up the rest of her shift. Ma'am, the more you resist, the longer this process takes, Callie said evenly. If there's nothing concerning in your bag, this will be over in 5 minutes, and you'll be on your way. Meanwhile, Duke continued his methodical assessment, now pacing in precise figure eights around the diaper bag, his nose working in overdrive. Each pass brought a fresh analysis, his body language shifting with microscopic tells that only experienced handlers could read. His ears were locked in that forward position, tail held at exactly the right angle. Not anxious, not confused, but absolutely certain. This was Duke in peak professional form, every hour of training and years of experience focused on a single task. Officer Daniels, Callie addressed the approaching officer quietly, though she kept her primary attention on Rachel. I need you to escort the minor to the Family Assistance Lounge. We've got a probable positive alert here, and protocol requires removing any minors from the immediate area during search procedures. Over my dead body! Rachel's shriek seemed to physically bounce off the terminal walls, turning every head in the vicinity. Several more phones came up, already recording. I'm not giving you people my baby so you can traumatize him while you tear apart his formula and diapers looking for drugs that don't exist. Ma'am, you're not under arrest, Callie explained, with the infinite patience of someone who delivered the speech countless times. But you are being detained for probable cause based on a confirmed K-9 alert. We can either escort your child to a supervised family assistance area with full visual oversight where you can see him at all times, or we contact Child Protective Services for an emergency placement during the investigation. Those are your options. Rachel's face cycled through about 12 different expressions in rapid succession. Defiance melting into panic, panic hardening into rage, rage faltering into something that looked almost like fear. For just a moment, her tough facade cracked enough for Callie to see something else underneath. I don't understand, Rachel said, and for the first time her voice held something other than anger. I fly all the time. I've never had any problems before. Your dog is wrong. Duke has a clearance rate of over 96% in field alerts, Callie responded. If he's indicating, there's a reason. The standoff continued for another 40 seconds, an eternity in airport time. Rachel's eyes darted from Callie to Duke to the gathering crowd to the approaching security supervisor, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Fine, she finally muttered, the fight seeming to drain out of her all at once. But I'm holding him the entire time. And I want everyone to see that you're harassing a mother with a baby because your dog made a mistake. Officer Daniels stepped forward, his movements deliberately non-threatening. Ma'am, I'll be right beside you and your son the entire time. This is standard procedure, nothing personal. As Rachel reluctantly allowed Daniels to guide her toward the family lounge, clutching Max like a life preserver, she shot one more venomous look at Callie. This isn't over. My lawyer's going to have a field day with this harassment case. The second the toddler was out of earshot, and Callie was left alone with the diaper bag, the professional mask came fully off. You people have no idea who you're messing with. Rachel's voice dropped to something almost feral. I've got rights. I know the law, and when this search turns up nothing but baby supplies and organic snacks, I'm going to sue this entire department for everything you're worth. Callie didn't take the bait. She'd heard variations of this speech from everyone ranging from suburban soccer moms to Fortune 500 executives. Innocent people might get upset about searches, but they rarely started planning lawsuits before the search even began. She snapped on fresh latex gloves and carefully unzipped the main compartment of the designer diaper bag, laying everything out on a nearby chair in an organized pattern. Each item got photographed and logged for the inevitable report. Diapers, premium brand, size 4, a juice box, organic apple, several packets of biodegradable wet wipes, an unopened package of rice cakes, 3 pacifiers in different colors, A well-worn copy of Goodnight Moon with suspicious teeth marks around the edges and what looked like a coffee stain on the back cover, a bottle of hand sanitizer, a small first aid kit with cartoon characters, a travel-sized pack of tissues, all completely normal. All exactly what you'd expect from a mother traveling with a toddler. Then she hit the side pockets, wedged between a bottle warmer that plugged into a car adapter and an unopened box of organic teething biscuits was a small cloth pouch, navy blue, with a silver zipper, too heavy for its size, too solid, definitely not containing baby supplies. Callie set it aside without opening it and gave Duke a subtle hand signal, the one that meant confirmed suspicion. The German Shepherd stepped forward immediately, no hesitation, and performed his trained response. One sharp bark, then a decisive paw point at the cloth pouch. Official alert confirmed. "Ma'am," Callie called to Rachel, who had been watching with increasing agitation, "we've located an item that requires additional screening." "What item?" Rachel's voice had climbed an octave. "This pouch." Callie held it up. "Can you tell me what's inside?" For the first time, real panic flashed across Rachel's face before she could control it. That's not mine." "This pouch came from your diaper bag. Someone must have put it there. I leave that thing unattended all the time. In restrooms, in stores. Anyone could have slipped something in." Callie unzipped the pouch slowly, revealing its contents for the security cameras. A clear plastic baggie containing white crystalline powder, another baggie with what looked like small blue pills, and a tiny digital scale still showing measurements from its last use. She opened her field test kit, withdrawn from her utility belt, and carefully swabbed a sample of the white powder onto the testing strip. The process took exactly 30 seconds. When the strip turned bright red, several people in the gathered crowd gasped audibly. Positive for fentanyl. Officer Daniels had returned just in time to witness the result, still accompanied by Max, who was mercifully quiet, now mesmerized by the airport activities around him. "I swear to God, I didn't—" Rachel's voice cracked, caught somewhere between desperation and complete shock. "That wasn't there this morning. I packed that bag myself. I've been using that same bag for months without any issues." "Ma'am, let me understand this," Callie said, her tone shifting to official report mode. "You had unknown controlled substances in the same bag as your child's food and medications?" "No, I mean, not knowingly. This is a setup. Someone planted that stuff." Callie tested the blue pills next. The result came back positive for MDMA, ecstasy. The digital scale showed a reading of 2.3 grams. "Ma'am, you're in possession of approximately 2.3 grams of fentanyl and what appears to be 30 individual doses of MDMA. These are felony amounts. You were attempting to board an aircraft with these substances in your possession." Rachel's entire body started shaking. The defiant anger, the entitled outrage, the threats of lawsuits, all of it evaporated in the face of hard chemical evidence. This can't be happening," she whispered. "Max needs me. He's only 3. His father's not in the picture. If I go to jail—" "You should have thought about that before bringing narcotics through airport security," another officer commented, perhaps less diplomatically than advisable. "I didn't bring them." Rachel's voice spiked again, but this time it was desperation, not anger. "I swear on my son's life, someone did this to me." Duke, who had been sitting in perfect attention during the whole exchange, suddenly stood and moved closer to Rachel. Not aggressively, not defensively, but with an odd gentleness that Callie had only seen a few times in their partnership. He sat directly beside her, close enough to offer comfort, but maintaining professional distance. The gesture seemed to break through Rachel's last reserves of resistance. She dropped onto the nearest chair, face buried in her hands, sobbing. "I was trying to get clean," she said between ragged breaths. "That's why I was going to Chicago. My cousin runs a treatment center there. I've been off everything for 3 months. 3 clean months, I swear." Callie felt something shift in her gut. She'd been a cop long enough to know the difference between manipulation and genuine truth, and something in Rachel's voice rang authentic. Tell me about the treatment center, she said quietly. It's called Second Chances. Rachel wiped her face with her sleeve. My cousin Maya runs it. I've been trying to get a bed there since February. She finally had space open up, but I had to come this week or lose it. Duke whined softly, not an alert, but something else. Recognition, maybe. Callie made a decision. Officer Daniels, please request a supervisor and wait here. I'd like to make a phone call before we proceed with standard arrest procedures. I don't understand. Rachel looked up, eyes red and swollen. Sometimes, Callie said carefully, we get situations that don't fit the standard patterns, and sometimes people who are trying to change get caught in impossible circumstances. She stepped away and called the number for Second Chances Treatment Center. After 3 transfers and 5 minutes of hold music, she reached someone named Maya. This is Officer Callie Navarro with Skyport PD. I'm calling about a potential client named Rachel Dunn. Oh God, is she okay? She was supposed to arrive here this afternoon. Callie explained the situation in broad terms. Maya's reaction was immediate and decisive. Rachel's been fighting so hard to get clean. She's been saving money for months to afford the program. She told me she was finally ready to commit to recovery. For her son, this has to be a mistake. Ma'am, we have physical evidence. And I'm telling you, she wouldn't risk it. Not now. Not when she was this close to getting help. Someone in her building has been dealing. She told me she was afraid he'd try to set her up because she refused to hold product for him. Callie returned to Rachel with questions. Who knows about your travel plans today? Just Maya, my neighbor who's watching my cat, and... Rachel stopped. And? There's a guy in my building. Derek. He's been asking me to hold stuff for him since my place is on the ground floor. Said dealers never check the apartments with kids. I kept saying no. When's the last time you saw him? Yesterday morning. He was angry because I wouldn't change my mind. Said I'd regret it. Duke had been watching this entire exchange with unusual intensity. Dogs don't understand human language, but they read people in ways humans can't comprehend. His behavior throughout this situation had been different from standard narcotics alerts. Callie made another call, this time to Portland PD. 30 minutes later, they had their answer. Derek Morrison, Rachel's neighbor, had been under surveillance for drug distribution. When officers responded to a noise complaint at Rachel's apartment building that morning, they'd found evidence that her apartment had been broken into sometime between 5 and 6 a.m., right when she'd been in the airport parking lot. Rachel collapsed in relief. I told you, she sobbed. I've been so scared he would do something like this. I've been sober for 93 days. I counted every single one. The charges were suspended pending the Portland investigation. Rachel was free to continue to Chicago for treatment. But something remarkable happened before she left. She knelt down beside Duke, who had remained nearby throughout the entire ordeal. I'm sorry I called you a mutt, she said softly, her hand outstretched. And I'm sorry for yelling at your partner. You were just doing your job. Duke stepped forward and gently pressed his nose into her palm. He doesn't hold grudges, Callie said, and neither do I. Sometimes the system catches people at their worst moment, but that doesn't define who they are or who they're trying to become. How long have you been doing this? Rachel asked, standing. 8 years with the force. But I spent 2 years before that getting clean myself. Rachel's eyes widened. You? Pills, then harder stuff when those ran out. Lost my scholarship, wrecked my car. Nearly died in a parking lot when I overdosed. Got arrested twice before I finally got help. And now you're 6 years sober, and every day is still a choice. Rachel's escort to another gate was quiet, but just before she left, she turned back. Officer Navarro, when I get out of treatment, if I make it through, can I write you? I'd like to know how it turns out. We'll be here, Callie promised, as Rachel and Max disappeared around the corner with their new boarding passes for the later flight. Duke sat beside Callie with what could only be described as satisfaction. Good boy, she murmured. You not only found the drugs, you might have saved a life today. Duke's tail wagged once, and they resumed their patrol, disappearing back into the anonymous flow of travelers. What would you do if a police dog suddenly stopped you at the airport, refusing to let you pass? Would you stay calm and cooperate, or would you panic, even if you thought you had nothing to hide? Think about this for a moment. How many people walk through terminals every single day, carrying struggles nobody else can see? Maybe they're 3 days sober. Maybe they're running from something. Maybe they're trying to change their entire life. What if the worst moment of your life happened in public, with cameras rolling? Here's what really gets me thinking. Duke didn't just detect drugs that day. He somehow sensed a person in crisis. He stayed beside Rachel during her breakdown, even though she'd been screaming at him minutes earlier. Can animals read human souls in ways we don't understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've ever had a moment where you were judged without the full context. How would you handle being in Rachel's shoes or Callie's? If this story hit home, go ahead and smash that like button. Stories about redemption and second chances need to be shared. They remind us that people are more complicated than their worst moments. Subscribe with notifications on. We've got incredible canine stories coming every day, and you won't want to miss them. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Maybe they're fighting their own battle with addiction. Maybe they've been quick to judge others. Maybe they just need to remember that everyone deserves a chance to get back up. 2. More powerful stories about working dogs and the people whose lives they've changed are waiting for you right on your screen. Click the one that calls to you. See you tomorrow with another story that'll remind you why we started sharing these in the first place. Because behind every badge, every controversial headline, every misunderstood moment, there are real people trying to do the right thing, both the two-legged and four-legged kind. Stay human, folks. The world needs it.